Mike Wolfe reveals his relationship with Frank Fritz before death. American Pickers star Mike Wolfe let fans know that Frank Fritz died on September 30. Frank suffered a stroke in 2022 and has been receiving long-term medical care since that time. While Mike and Frank had a falling out before the stroke, the two had mended fences somewhat since then. Here is a look at Mike and Franca and their complicated relationship. Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz fell out thanks to American Pickers. Since the show started, Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz starred together on American Pickers. The childhood friends helped build the show into a ratings juggernaut as they traveled the country looking for antiques and taking the world into small-town Americana. However, their relationship ended when Frank began to deal with addiction issues. Frank ended up checking himself into rehab. When he was released, Frank had back surgery, which left him with almost 200 stitches and 2 rods in his back. At this point, Mike had him fired from American Pickers. Mike replaced Frank with Robbie Wolfe, and it seemed their relationship had been destroyed. "It's up to the network whether I come back on the show," Frank Fritz explained in 2021 via USA Today. "It ain't gonna affect me one bit. I didn't leave the show. I finished shooting." Mike tried to write it off by saying that Frank was like a brother to him, but it was time to move on with the show without him. This angered many fans. American Pickers had one of its lowest-rated seasons in history after that. Things got worse when Frank had his stroke. Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz made up after stroke. No one heard anything publicly from Frank Fritz after his massive stroke. However, Mike was there to offer his support and well wishes, and he said that the two of them spent time together after the stroke, mending their relationship. This was good news since Frank had said he hadn't spoken to Mike in 2 years during an interview in 2021 via the U.S. Sun. It seems like the stroke finally made Mike reconsider severing a lifelong friendship. Mike claimed it was Frank's addiction issues that kept him from reaching out to his old friend. "I would love to talk with him again. We would absolutely love to. But he just can't get it right," Mike said. Frank is just going through a lot personally with his addictions. For his part, Frank said he had been sober for 11 months after going to rehab. In May 2023, Mike and Frank reunited over Memorial Day weekend and started to patch things up after their falling out. It has since been reported that they were still on good terms, and Mike was trying to make up for Frank's exit from the show. Mike Wolfe, the familiar face of American Pickers, has always been the adventurous treasure hunter who inspired millions with his love for history and antiques. But behind his on-screen enthusiasm, there was a deeper, more complex story, one involving his longtime friend and co-star, Frank Fritz. As Frank's tragic passing shook the American Pickers community, Mike opened up about their relationship in a way he hadn't before, offering a heartfelt glimpse into the highs and lows of their friendship. Mike and Frank had known each other for over 2 decades, long before they became TV icons. Their bond was forged through a shared love for finding hidden gems in the most unexpected places, traveling dusty backroads in search of history. It was this connection that eventually led to the creation of American Pickers, where their chemistry and contrasting personalities made the show a hit. Frank was the quirky, often grumpy, but undeniably knowledgeable sidekick, while Mike was the outgoing, friendly, and more diplomatic leader. Together, they were a perfect team. But as the years rolled on, their friendship, like many long-term relationships, began to face challenges. Frank's struggles with health issues and addiction became more public, and by 2021, Frank had stepped away from the show. His exit was marred by rumors and speculation, with fans wondering if there had been a falling out between the two longtime friends. In the weeks after Frank's departure, Mike remained relatively silent on the subject, save for a few well-wishing comments. However, after Frank's sudden and heartbreaking death, Mike was finally ready to open up about what had really happened between them. In an emotional interview, Mike revealed that his relationship with Frank had been far more complicated than most people realized, filled with moments of deep connection but also tension and distance. When you're on the road with someone for as long as Frank and I were, you go through a lot. Mike began, his voice heavy with emotion. It's like a marriage in a way. We spent more time together than we did with our families. You build this bond, but you also get on each other's nerves. We loved each other, but we also had our issues. Mike admitted that Frank's health problems, particularly his battle with Crohn's disease, were a constant struggle. Frank wasn't always the easiest to work with, and he'd be the first to tell you that, Mike confessed. He had a lot of pain, physical and emotional, and sometimes that pain came out in ways that weren't healthy for our friendship. But I never stopped caring about him. I never stopped wanting the best for him. The public falling out between Mike and Frank had been fueled by misunderstandings, according to Mike. Frank had felt left behind when he wasn't asked to return to American Pickers, and there had been accusations that Mike hadn't supported him enough during his recovery from back surgery. Mike, however, shared that he had tried to reach out numerous times. I called Frank so many times after he left the show, Mike said softly. I wanted to talk, to figure things out, but sometimes he just didn't want to answer. I think he needed space, and I respected that. But it hurt, not being able to fix things. As Frank's health continued to deteriorate in the months before his passing, Mike was left feeling a profound sense of regret. I wish I had pushed harder, he admitted. I wish I had been there more, but it's hard when someone you care about is pulling away. You don't want to overstep, but you also don't want to lose them. Despite the distance that had grown between them, Mike's love for Frank never wavered. In the days following Frank's death, Mike posted a heartfelt tribute to his friend on social media, describing him as like a brother. He explained that their relationship had been filled with ups and downs, but the bond they shared would never be broken. Frank and I had our fights, but we had a lot of laughs too, Mike recalled with a smile. He was a funny guy, and he could make anyone laugh, even when he was being stubborn. There were times when I'd be ready to throw in the towel, and then he'd crack some joke, and suddenly everything would be okay again. One of Mike's fondest memories of Frank was from their early days of picking. We were driving through the middle of nowhere, in some small town that didn't even show up on the map. We'd been on the road for hours, and we were both exhausted. But then we stumbled upon this old barn filled with vintage motorcycles. Frank lit up like a kid in a candy store. He had this passion, this excitement, and it was contagious. That's when I knew we had something special, that we were on the right path. Now looking back, Mike realizes that while their friendship may have had its struggles, the memories they created together were irreplaceable. Frank was a huge part of my life, and he always will be, Mike said. No matter what happened between us, I'll always cherish the times we spent together. He was more than just a co-star. He was family. As Mike continues to move forward with American Pickers without his longtime partner, he knows that Frank's absence will always be felt. The show isn't the same without him, Mike admitted. It's hard to look over and not see him there. But I know he's with me in spirit, and I'm going to keep picking in his memory. In the end, Mike's reflections on his relationship with Frank Fritz before his death reveal a story of friendship, love, and loss. Their bond was far from perfect, but it was real, and it endured through the highs and lows of life on the road. Mike's tribute to Frank is a reminder that even in the most complicated relationships, the love and connection shared are what truly matter in the end.